Hay una información muy interesante de Michael Sala sobre cómo las élites, la corporación Arconte controladora del planeta, están buscando por toda la Tierra híbridos Anunnaki del pasado en bases subterráneas, como por ejemplo la de los montes Bucegi, o la de los hacedores de alas, los Waymakers, o como también la ya conocida noticia de que habrían encontrado la tumba de Gigantes, o la conocida noticia del hallazgo de unos gigantes en estado de criogenización o éxtasis en la zona de la antigua Sumeria, en Irak, y tecnologías de estos seres que se habrían revelado en aquellas épocas a la facción controladora Arconte. Hay varias publicaciones sobre extraños hallazgos de estos gigantes híbridos y de sus tecnologías avanzadas como portales estelares, naves bimanas, objetos de poder, etc. Pero siempre quedarán en la duda de si es real o no, ya que la gente está tan programada que cuando ve algo relacionado con esta información es descartada inmediatamente como una falsificación, un fake. Pero veamos lo que nos dice Michael Sala sobre un nuevo hallazgo relacionado con los híbridos Anunnaki. Y dice lo siguiente: en la noche del 1 de noviembre, mi fuente privilegiada del ejército de los Estados Unidos, JP, me habló de otro gigante en una cámara de éxtasis que habría sido descubierto en Irak, que era un rey en tiempos muy antiguos, en la antigua Sumeria. Explicó que hay una conexión significativa con el gigante en la cámara de éxtasis encontrada en Florida, que también era un ex-rey, un Anunnaki híbrido, y JP hizo una conexión adicional con un tercer gigante en éxtasis en una ciudad submarina en el Triángulo de las Bermudas, que visitó durante una de sus misiones secretas a finales de agosto del año 2022. JP también dijo que las semillas de un árbol de la vida, ubicado junto al gigante dormido en Florida, que más tarde fue identificado como Ningisida, señor del árbol bueno en sumerio, semillas que fueron robadas del control militar de los Estados Unidos y llevadas a Inglaterra por orden del nuevo soberano británico, el rey Carlos III, fueron encontradas y devueltas. Las semillas, sin embargo, necesitaban ser llevadas primero a Irak para una activación del gigante recién descubierto en Mesopotamia. Después de informar a Elena Danan, una contactada, sobre la última actualización de JP, le pregunté si Thor Han Heredion, un pleiadiano de la Federación Galáctica, tenía alguna información adicional para compartir sobre el gigante dormido Anunnaki. Y esto es lo que Elena me describió. Le pregunté a Thor Han sobre la información de JP y él respondió que se cree que este gigante de Irak es otro del equipo de científicos de Enki. Este gigante de Irak guarda el salón de los registros vinculado a las montañas Bucegi en Rumanía y otra en el Tíbet, y que también hay una antigua nave espacial, un arca, con tecnología altamente avanzada y poderosa. Emplea el término holográfico cuántico para algunas de las tecnologías allí. Las Fuerzas Armadas de la Alianza Terrestre lo han estado protegiendo desde su descubrimiento. La confrontación, guerra en Irak se trataba de esto, del descubrimiento y control de artefactos Anunnakis muy antiguos. Más gigantes Anunnaki deberían llamar nuestra atención pronto, pero no está autorizado a revelar las ubicaciones precisas de donde se encuentran las cámaras de éxtasis. Este lugar en Irak es el centro neurálgico Anunnaki de la Tierra. La información de Thor Han corrobora aspectos clave de lo que se le dijo al denunciante y a JP sobre la importancia del gigante recién descubierto Anunnaki en éxtasis en Irak. Significativamente, JP recibió las coordenadas geográficas del gigante dormido en Irak. Los mapas de Google muestran que esto está adyacente a la antigua ciudad sumeria de Nippur, conocida como un centro de culto para Enlil y su hijo Ninurta. Esto significaría que cualquier tecnología Anunnaki oculta allí estaría entre las más antiguas y sofisticadas de estos seres, dioses del pasado. Hay un total de 7 científicos extraterrestres Anunnaki que permanecen en cámaras de éxtasis en diferentes regiones del planeta. Es posible que uno de ellos fuera previamente un asociado de Enlil o de Ninurta, y desertara a la facción de Enki, optando por entrar en la cámara de éxtasis ubicada en el centro de donde se encontraba la tecnología Anunnaki más avanzada del planeta. Mi análisis anterior fue confirmado más tarde por Thor Han, quien dio el nombre del gigante iraquí dormido como Aruna y dio la siguiente información sobre él transmitida por Elena. Es ingeniero jefe de tecnologías avanzadas de naves espaciales que trabajó para Enlil al principio. Cambió de bando al final para unirse a la causa de Enki y trabajar con él. La tecnología mantenida allí es muy importante y muy valorada. También hay una puerta estelar enterrada no muy lejos. Hay una tremenda presencia militar alrededor de esta área. Nippur fue el centro de operaciones de Enlil durante mucho tiempo y había un puerto espacial allí. Algunas naves espaciales Anunnaki todavía están enterradas en esa zona. Parece que la humanidad ha alcanzado un punto de inflexión histórico crítico, donde los gigantes Anunnaki que despiertan del estado de hibernación están siendo reactivados. Muchos han oído hablar de los Nephilim Anunnaki, híbridos Anunnaki, una raza de gigantes avanzados que una vez caminaron por el planeta y se describen en libros antiguos como la Biblia. Pocos saben que algunos de estos gigantes se escondieron bajo tierra, en bases subterráneas y en cámaras de éxtasis, donde permanecen hasta el día de hoy esperando despertar y que ya están siendo activados.
Recovering stolen seeds from a tree of life and activation of a sleeping giant in Iraq. On the evening of November 1st, my US Army source JP told me about another giant in a stasis chamber that had been discovered in Iraq, who was a king in ancient times. He explained that there was a significant connection with the giant in the stasis chamber found in Florida, who was also a former king. And JP made a further connection to a third sleeping giant in an underwater city in the Bermuda Triangle that he visited during one of his covert missions in late August 2022. JP also said that the seeds from a tree of life located next to the sleeping giant in Florida, later identified as Ningish Zida, which had been stolen from US military control and taken to England on the orders of the new British sovereign, King Charles, had been found and would be returned. The seeds, however, needed to be first taken to Iraq for an activation of the newly discovered giant there. As was discussed in a previous video, the activation process for the giant in the Florida cave had taken place at the recently completed Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection event in Orlando. What follows is the recording of the conversation I had with JP on November 1st.
Well, I'm here with JP, who has an update about the missing seeds from the Florida underground cavern civilization that he visited and on 2 occasions with missions. And he has some more information about the missing seeds that were taken out of the US to England, and he knows a little bit more about that. So welcome, JP, and tell us, what have you learned?
How you doing, Doc? We learned that we caught this person that is, people are not saying that is human. We caught him and they were interrogating him, and they're gonna bring him back to the States. And bringing him back to the States, we're taking the seeds with somebody else is gonna be with us, but we're taking the seeds. I don't know if they got in a type of agreement with England with the seeds and catching this character. They're going over there. I think they're going with the kingdom, like with people from that's in charge of the kingdom. So I don't know if we came in agreement to not. I don't think we're working with them, but I know the seeds is in our possessions again. The place that we were guarding over here in Florida, the springs, it's open again. They were guarding it, but now it's open again. It's freely open. So they're actually taking these seeds to Iraq, in the middle of Iraq, to do some type of, I'm not gonna say like a ritual, or they have to like take it somewhere. They're saying that there's another sleeping king over there that is in stasis.
So just for those that maybe aren't quite clear what seeds we're talking about. These are the seeds from the tree of life that is located in a location in Florida that we can't talk about. And there's a sleeping giant there that we've identified as Ningishzida, who is also known as Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, and Kukulkan. And so these seeds and that giant, now there's some kind of connection with another giant king in Iraq, somewhere between the two rivers. Well, that whole area, Mesopotamia, is the land between two rivers, Iraq. So I guess we're talking about the Euphrates and the Tigray rivers.
Well, I know it's somewhere in the middle of Iraq. In the middle of Iraq, in between two major rivers that run through there. They're gonna take these seeds over there, and they're gonna like really, I don't know if there's an ark there. I'm getting a feeling that there probably is an ark there, but I'm not sure until tomorrow when I get more information, and we probably do a mission. It's kind of warming up right now, you know, in Brazil. In Brazil also, the ark in Brazil is warming up right now. And we all know the situation in Brazil right now, what's happening also.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I know you've mentioned that there are 9 arcs that you know of, and you identified one in Caldas Novas.
Caldas Novas.
Caldas Novas.
Yeah.
In kind of like, that's not that far from the capital, Brasilia.
It's not that far from the capital. And right now in Brazil, the military might take over the presidency over there, because I think Lula, he is an ex-con, and he was in jail, I think for quite a long time, and now he's president. But now something is happening to the arc over there that is warming up. But going back to the seeds over there in Iraq, they're gonna do, I don't know if they're gonna take it to a machine, these seeds, and like activate them. I think there's an activation process, and I think that's what over there in England that they were trying to do that and explain that to us, but we wasn't getting it. So they're gonna do an activation. This is also gonna activate certain things around the world. When these seeds are activated in a certain way, is gonna activate some arcs around the world really, really big.
Okay, so you're saying that there's some connection between these space arcs that have been activating around the planet, because these seed fleets have arrived into our solar system, kind of like middle of last year, and that these seeds from this tree of life that was taken from Florida to England and is now on its way to Iraq, that somehow those seeds are connected to the arcs. Can you explain more the connection?
They're connected to the arcs, so these seeds are connected with the arc somehow. When I say seeds, Doc, it's not only plants, it is also blood, or how can I say this in the proper way? This might sound strange, but semen. It is considered a seed. Remember I told you that they were giving also tube filled with a liquid?
Yeah.
That went with the seeds? So that's actually, I know this probably sounds far-fetched, but people would understand that bloodline is really important in any situation. It's actually semen. I don't know how people are gonna get this, but you probably understand what I'm trying to say.
Now, this is genetic material from the giant himself?
Yes, it's also his genetic material. When I say seeds, it's not only the tree of life type of seed, it's also genetic seeds as well. Biological, any kind of seed. I know they gave certain animal species, plant species, and as I'm not saying that this is probably okay. Let's just leave it right there. I don't know what's gonna happen from from there, but yeah, it's semen. It's actually semen. So they're taking these. You asked me, how is this connected to the arcs? The way people activate the arcs, the way when you enter into the arc, a certain person can activate it by entering the arc, like the Aztec Mexicans that entered the arc, or a person like myself, or a person, you know, like Charles or Lena, a person that has a DNA to activate arcs. So by taking these seeds, I'm gonna call them seeds to be polite. If you also take these seeds with you to the arc, it'll activate it. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, that is. I know Elena has said that activating the arcs has been a high priority for the Dark Alliance when they find them, but that they need both the genetic material of the crew as well as the soul vibration. So it's, you know, it's not just a matter of cloning a body and sending it in there.
Yeah.
The soul vibration as well.
But now they're trying to activate these seeds over there in Iraq with some other sleeping giant. I don't know if whoever's protecting that particular giant, I don't know which civilization is protecting that giant, but I heard that the people that protect.
Brad Olsen es un escritor e investigador de antiguas civilizaciones, de objetos fuera de tiempo conocidos como OPARCH, e investiga el tema de los gigantes en el pasado, los conocidos en la Biblia como Nephilim, híbridos de una especie mitad humanos, mitad Anunnaki, alienígenas, que poblaron la Tierra hace miles de años atrás. Explica en un capítulo de su libro Más allá de lo esotérico, escapando del planeta prisión, los hallazgos que logró descubrir tras sus investigaciones sobre esta especie de seres híbridos gigantes. En una entrevista con Michael Sala, trata el asunto del grupo conocido como Instituto Smithsoniano, que realmente es un equipo de agentes del gobierno secreto que, como he dicho en anteriores ocasiones, se dedican a buscar, rastrear por todo el planeta ubicaciones donde están estos seres gigantes híbridos en estado de letargo, en galerías subterráneas, junto a tecnologías muy avanzadas. Y cómo los ocultan, se los llevan a laboratorios y bases subterráneas de las élites controladoras, así como esqueletos y cráneos alargados de estas entidades, de híbridos, son ocultados para su estudio y para la ocultación de esa parte de la historia humana que nos habla sobre un pasado muy diferente al cual nos han mostrado en los libros de historia. Averiguó que, si bien el descubrimiento de esqueletos gigantes en antiguos cementerios se mostró ampliamente en los periódicos a finales del siglo XIX, el tema se ocultó por completo poco después del cambio de siglo. Durante más de 100 años, organizaciones como el Instituto Smithsoniano tomaron rápidamente el control de los lugares de enterramiento, silenciaron a los arqueólogos e impusieron un manto de secreto sobre el paradero de los esqueletos gigantes recuperados. Olsen analiza los relatos de gigantes en los textos de civilizaciones antiguas como Sumeria, el encubrimiento de las excavaciones modernas de esqueletos humanos gigantes y por qué el Instituto Smithsoniano ha suprimido el tema. Explica la variación en el tamaño de los gigantes y responde a la idea de que visitantes alienígenas como los Anunnaki, además, crearon gigantes de diferentes tamaños mediante experimentación genética. También Olsen aborda las afirmaciones recientes de gigantes vivientes que se encuentran en cámaras de éxtasis en todo el planeta.
So it shows that these elongated skulls, literally found around the world, must have been from a human-like race of giants, because 30% larger skull, 30% larger body, it just goes to show. And you can see in that distribution map, it's truly a worldwide phenomenon where these were found. So it's not a one-off, it's a many-off. And here's the other thing, Michael, these bones are still continued to be found. When I was down in South America 4 years ago, we went into some museums and they would display these elongated skulls. They just, hey, this is part of our heritage. They considered them royalty, and they were buried in royal tombs. And you can see displays with these elongated skulls. They're not trying to hide them. In fact, in Paracas, Peru is the best collection of all. And Brian Forrester, he lives down there and he knows where the graveyard was, and he finds some of the implements. And he's even done some DNA studies that show that they had a mother's human DNA, but an unknown father. So that's quite interesting. And that kind of corresponds with what the Bible says, is that these men of renown found the earth women attractive and they mated with them. So this seems to be perhaps how the Nephilim were a species of the Anunnaki, the offspring of these giants. 100 years ago, where they discovered all these giants. And it turns out there are effigy mounds in southern Wisconsin near the shore of some of these lakes. And that's the famous dig there, which was done by professors of Beloit College. I mean, they did everything textbook, the way archaeology should be done. And if you go to the headline of the Wisconsin newspaper, they were announcing it as this incredible find of giants. And like so many cases of professional archaeological digs, you have the Smithsonian coming in right after the announcement goes over the wire, and here in this case the New York Times is picking it up, and the Smithsonian shows up. They're like Johnny on the spot, showing their FBI badges. Say, well, we're taking over here, we outrank you guys. And as in most cases, those archaeologists would have to defer to the Smithsonian and say, well, but please keep us abreast of your findings. And almost routinely, they would go back to the Smithsonian and say, well, what else did you find? What are some cultural traits of these giants that we are starting to discover? And routinely they'd say, we don't know what you're talking about. There are no giant bones here. And they've denied it ever since. So it is what we call Smithsonian Gate in this country, where these out of place artifacts, upas or giant bones, just go missing. They do not want to deal with the subject. And so that has just stoked my interest even more and got me involved in giving talks on the giants at conferences and having a chapter in Beyond Esoteric called Suppressed Human Origins, because they lived on this earth just as we did in prehistoric times. And there's a big story that's not being told about who and what these,
such as the Freemasons, that apparently also have this goal of monopolizing esoteric knowledge. And I know from reading the Radu Cinema book series, the Transylvania series of books, that the Freemasons played this role of every time there's a kind of breakthrough in scientific knowledge, that their people go in there and they use their connections to get high-level access and to kind of keep it all secret and to control it and extract whatever benefits for themselves. So, yeah, the Freemasons, what do you think of them and their role in this whole cover-up of this forbidden knowledge?
And we know that they're a secret society. What's the nature of a secret society? To keep secrets. And I'm glad you brought up the Freemasons, Michael, because out here in the West Coast, there have been a lot of findings of giants, not only out on the Channel Islands, hundreds of them found. Some of them underneath a awning where they were roasting their midget mammoths. So this could only have occurred in the last ice age. Also, up in northern Nevada was a giant freshwater lake. It's where I've just relocated next year to a ranch in northwestern Nevada, is in the basin of Lake Lahoshan, this giant freshwater lake with caves all around it, that they found these red-headed giants. They were so unusual because they were mummified, much in the same manner as Egyptian mummification, but they had created their own implements, their own tools, their own hunting gear, even duck decoys that were so amazingly unique to them. They have to call them by their own name, and it's the Lovelock culture, named after the biggest cave called Lovelock Cave just outside of Lovelock, Nevada, where they found dozens of these mummified red-haired giants. But the Masons come into the picture in the 19th century when they're digging them up, actually in 1933, so this would be the 20th century, and they were known to have taken them out. And I go to all the museums in Nevada trying to find any remnants of the giants, and they usually just laugh me out. Oh, you're one of those guys, huh? But there are records of these giants being taken to Masonic halls, just in the same way that Geronimo, the famous Native American warrior, his body, his skull was dug up, and it's reported to still be at Skull and Bones in Yale. So these secret societies have a fascination with these with these giants and these mummies that were found in the caves, and it's almost like a death cult. And you see this in primitive cultures around the world. For example, in Hawaii, which I'm sure you know, with the Heiau temples and the whole concept of mana, that you could steal the chief's energy once you killed him, and the Native Americans would wear the scalps of their enemies to get the mana of these fallen warriors. So it's kind of a reoccurring theme around the world that they're trying to capture the energy or the essence of these giants after they've lived, and keep them in their close quarters behind lock and key in many cases, and I've not been able to get close to them. Now, my colleague and friend David Hatcher Childress, who's in a lot of the Ancient Alien shows, he's tracked a few down, and he has confirmed to me that he knows that the Masons have collected some of these giant skulls, and he wrote about them in his Lost Cities of North America book, if anybody wants to.
There's that phenomenon of these space arcs that are being discovered or being revealed by various sources, JP being one of them, and that they report, JP, Jean-Charles Moyen, Elena Danam, reports seeing these very large sarcophagi or these stasis chambers where they saw giants in them, and they're estimated to be around 10 feet or more in size, and these are described as the crew for those giant space arcs that can take hundreds of thousands of people, or tens of thousands at the very least. That these are operational craft, and that the crew are sleeping in these stasis chambers, but that their consciousness has been transferred into an ordinary human body, and they're living as star seeds, and they at some point presumably will awaken. So that's going to be really quite something when these space arcs suddenly start activating and start popping up, and the crew start appearing in their original avatar bodies as these giants.
So someone's got to know that they're there. And I would say that those same someone are probably also part of this cover-up to just erase the history of anything giant related. And another piece of the puzzle was what Alex Collier said when asked the question, who owns the Earth? Alex was doing a Q&A at the Mount Shasta Summer Conference last summer, and he gave the very succinct answer, the Anunnaki. So according to him, they're still around and they're still running the show. And maybe the people that we think are running the world, the Rothschilds or Rockefellers, are more like the colonels and majors in the hierarchy here, and the real generals are these off-planet types that are protecting their own, these stasis chambers. And isn't it interesting that they're all built for giants? Not you and me, even though I'm a tall guy, they're way bigger than me. And it seems that they're the real rulers of this planet Earth, and why so many things just don't make any sense. Why the narrative gets steered towards the way they want us to think, not based on the evidence that we find here in the case of the giants?
Well, I know that in the ancient world, the topic of giants was very well known, and it's all over the artwork. Sure. And there's one Sumerian or Akkadian, I guess, cuneiform tablet that shows the god king Shamash. That's the Akkadian name for the sun god to the king. So that the first midget on the left is a normal sized king of Earth, of that era in ancient Sumeria, and behind him are two minor gods, and they're kind of, you can see that they're a little bit larger, but Shamash must be about 25 feet tall in comparison to these other guys, and I think maybe this was the whole hierarchy thing, that you have a gradation in terms of, you know, the biggest of the giants were avatars for the Anunnaki leaders, or these senior extraterrestrials, and the kind of smaller giants, the ones that are around 10 feet or whatever, that they are kind of like avatars for lesser Anunnaki or lesser extraterrestrial beings. So yeah, I thought that image of Shamash, the sun god, tells a lot about the hierarchy.
It sure does. And if you could pop it up one more time, there's another detail, and that is the two animals underneath the giant seat, which appear to be lions, would you think? Some kind of animals. You can see they're, or perhaps a hoofed animal, but they are in accordance to the size of the people on the left, not the size of the giant. And there's another very famous portrait of Gilgamesh, and he's holding a lion in one arm like it's a house cat, and you can clearly see it's a full-grown lion, which are about as big as humans. So that's a good tell that the artist who represented here was doing the exact sizing, because those animals are in relation to the other three, not to the giant king there, who must be about 15, 20 feet tall. If you look at his kneecap comes up to their shoulders. So clearly a giant, and wearing a headgear, which is also common with a lot of the pharaohs, that they try to disguise their elongated heads.
Enki and Enlil. Enki is described in various texts as the Anunnaki scientist that created humans. He was the geneticist. He was the commander of Earth and responsible for the Earth experiment, you know, the genetic experiment, creating these different bodies. So I'm just going to put that image up of the different giants that Enki created, those different giants. I mean, they performed various functions. I mean, the bigger ones were avatars for Anunnaki. You know, depending on your status in Anunnaki society, you would be given one of the kind of like larger avatars, and if you were like in a gigi worker, you might be given one of these 20-foot bodies or something like that. And then you have the smaller, like the hybrids, like the size of Goliath and Og, that these were also created as kind of like human kings, but they were also created by Enki. And of course you have the humans at the very end, but Enki somehow thought that bestowing intelligence on the humans was actually a good idea, that there was something about them, that they carried a potential. And so he nurtured that, and of course his half-brother Enlil was like, took the attitude that no, these workers, they're there to serve us. They just, just shut up and don't create any problems. And actually, that's what's described in these texts. The Atrahasis actually describes that the humans were making too much noise for Enlil and his faction, and so Enlil said, "Well, let's wipe them out, start again, and just dumb them down." And Enki didn't want to have anything to do with that, and kind of like so there was that dispute between them.